Hi, BitChute viewers. Before the video begins, I want to share a special discount offer on BitChute memberships. Use the link in the description. Enjoy.
With Iran?
Yeah, do you think they want to engage diplomatically with you?
They do. They called
They called you? Is it
yesterday.
Is it still an option?
Iran called to negotiate.
Yesterday.
Yesterday, the leaders of Iran called. They want to negotiate. I think they're tired of being beat up by the United States.
Can you share any details on that call?
Iran wants to negotiate. Yes.
Negotiate what?
We may meet with them. I mean, a meeting is being set up, but we may have to act because of what's happening before the meeting.
Right.
But a meeting is being set up. Iran called. They want to negotiate.
We don't have a single carrier task force in the area. So there is not going to be any military strike on Iran until there's at least one, if not two, carrier task force in the region. If for no other reason, to provide support for in the event of combat, search and rescue, if there are any downed aircraft, number one. Number two, I think there'd have to be additional squadrons of fighter bombers deployed to the region, whether it's Diego Garcia or farther up. Three, the facilities, the bases, particularly Al Udeid in Qatar and the naval facility in Bahrain, those are either going to have to be hardened and or evacuated, because Iran's made it very clear. If there's another strike on Iran, they're not going to wait. They are going to hit U.S. facilities immediately. They're not mincing words on that because of the U.S. involvement in this latest round of anti-regime protests and the attacks on security forces in Iran. So until we see sort of those three developments, I think we can sit back and say, okay, they're not going to launch a military strike. Now, could they launch cyber warfare? Yeah, absolutely. Could they impose more sanctions? I guess. I'm not sure what else is left to sanction. But there's a real gap between Trump's rhetoric, what he says, the tough talk, and what he can actually do.
Well, Larry, I'll tell you, I'm worried about something else that Trump may believe his own press, that he is incapable of nothing but victories and success. And we saw, just a few days ago, we had a big series of strikes in Syria against the I guess, alleged ISIS people who killed some Americans here recently, and we went in with a big package there. Would be easy to have another package to go a little bit further up there. So you can't get into a war with that. But if you just think that you can launch off a few missiles and rockets and everything is going to be fine, he may do that without, as you said, without the potential for having rescue kind of capabilities or whatever if we have, because nothing's bad's going to happen to us. I'm worried that Trump may be careless about something like that. He may do it.
Oh yeah, no, that's a reasonable position. But the problem we've got is we don't even know what to believe anymore about Trump and these claims, because I would simply, and now there's probably enough in your audience, if they're 40, they don't really remember, or they weren't paying much attention. But go back to 23 years ago when we launched the shock and awe in Baghdad. And we had several days of bombings. We had some spectacular visuals of blowing buildings up and, all of that. And yet, Baghdad, the Iraqis, who were actually pretty weak at the time, they didn't collapse immediately at all. And I think, as you know, there were still a number of generals on the Iraqi side who had been paid off to, hey, stand down, take a vacation, take your boys home. They did so. We're not going to find that in Iran, number one. That's not going to happen. Number two, Iran is now far better prepared to deal with a U.S. attack and or Israeli attack than they were back on June 12th. In June 12th, they've been sort of lulled into complacency by, we're going to talk to the Americans. They won't attack us. No, though, that's not true. We now no longer, we can never trust the Americans on that front. And in fact, what they've done subsequent to that is they've turned to Russia and China for extensive collaboration on military and intelligence matters, as well as acquiring new equipment, getting some systems that the Russians have personnel in country now to operate. So Trump's the reckless rhetoric about, oh, we're going to have to intervene. Yeah, what are you going to do? I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to, quote, launch some more bombing raids on what? You know, and what Trump fails to understand is Iran is a country of 91 million people. It's a big country. It's 4 times the size of Iraq geographically. There are a lot. They've scattered their ballistic missile storage sites all over the country, so that they're not just sitting in one location where you blow up that location and the threat's gone. Heavens no. They hit 1, they hit 2. There's 10 that can spring up and start firing at Al Udeid. They can start firing at Bahrain, and they will close. This time they're going to close the Strait of Hormuz. 72% of OPEC oil comes out of the Persian Gulf. 72%. Do you think losing 70% of the supply of oil in the world is going to have an economic effect? You betcha.
Yeah, all because of the recklessness. Let me ask you just real quick, briefly, what does the American, all that military power I've just shown you in the past 12 months that we've used, the fact that we're threatening maybe Greenland, maybe Canada, maybe Colombia, maybe Mexico, and then maybe Iran again. And in fact, it's looking likely Iran. When we're trying to have negotiations with Russia on nuclear reductions, possibly, because here just next month, the START 2 is going to finally officially be done. And we're trying to negotiate with Russia on an end to the Russia-Ukraine war.
Right.
I mean, what is that? What is Trump's lack of trust in his word, and his propensity and his willingness to use lethal military power literally all over the globe? What is this going to do for that negotiation there? And then, if you wouldn't mind, afterwards, taking a look at what you think this does in Beijing with all of their issues.
Yeah, well, the Russians, after this failed 91 drone attack on the Putin residence in Novgorod, made clear, hey, we're reassessing our approach to negotiations with Ukraine, but by implication also the United States. Now, you've not had a renewal of talks with Witkoff going back to Moscow, Witkoff and Kushner. Because frankly, I don't know what they're going to go talk about. Because Russia at this point, Putin has made the decision. We're going to finish this militarily, and present the United States with the fiat accompli, with an end state that we've set and we've determined, not them. And what's the United States going to do? The United States right now does not have the military power to, look at how long it took to build up forces off the coast of Venezuela. Almost 5 months. That's Venezuela, for God's sake. I mean, we're not talking some military juggernaut. And even after all of that buildup and putting the naval force out there on alert, we didn't go in and secure the ground because we can't. We don't have the military force and power to do so. So China's watching all of this as well, and they're talking to the Russians. And I think one of the things that Vladimir Putin conveyed to Xi is, they tried to kill me. We now know that I was deliberately targeted, and they were targeting our nuclear facilities. And this was the second time this year that the nuclear facilities in Russia were targeted by the West. The first was on June 1st with that massive drone attack that was going after the strategic airfields. So I think,
and Putin, you can say the other one where they went after the long range radar system for the nuclear force as well. So really, the third time. Yeah.
But that was in 2024, right?
Yeah.
That's what I said. This was the second one.
This America.
This is the second one this year, and then you add that one in its third. So I think Putin's explaining to Xi, I know the preferred outcome is to try to get a negotiated settlement, but the Americans are crazy. They are reckless. They are not thinking this through. And then you have to take the words of Trump, and it's not just him. You got Stephen Miller saying the crazy things, Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance. Then you get the likes of Jack Keane. Then you get Lindsey Graham, and then you get Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat senator.
Yeah.
if I'm put in the role as an intelligence analyst asked to come in and brief President Putin and President Xi, and their question is there any American with credibility and standing that is talking about that we need to back away from the precipice of war and figure out a way to negotiate to restore the rule of law and international law, that we can cooperate and come to a diplomatic agreement? Is there anyone? I'd have to say no, there's not a single one.
I'm not aware of any.
In fact, what you've got are the leaders of both parties are both belligerent and bellicose with respect to both of you, to Russia and to China. So no, there is no one. So give them that information. What's their next course of action? To say, oh, let's trust the Americans. Let's give them let's give peace a chance. Let's go John Lennon on them. But I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't think that's a very high list of priority there.
Yeah. So that's why I think that they've Trump, whether it was his intent or not, has now shifted the dynamic of this in a way that Russia is going to be far more strict in its negotiations with Trump. No more benefit of the doubt, because if anything, Putin is now under political pressure within the Duma. They want to declare war. They say, okay, let's get off of this special military operation.
Really?
Let's declare war, and let's mobilize our resources accordingly, because we're at war with the West. But Putin's he's trying to keep that at bay, but he's not getting any help from Trump. Trump's words and actions are just feeding into that and undermining any chance that Putin has of trying to, hold the Russians back. And yet, again, the silliness of the West is the thing. Oh, if we just get rid of Putin, Russia will be easier to deal with. Oh my God.
Yeah, obviously it's going to be working. Listen, in the last bit of time we have here, I just kind of like your review. I've asked some of our earlier guests on earlier shows today something. I'd really like your unique view on this. In the event that Trump does order strikes against Iran, and they do have a response anywhere close at all to what that member of the parliament said yesterday, and they start hitting our bases and kill a bunch of Americans, maybe a bunch in different places. So it's like, all right, you can't back down out of this. This isn't just going to be retaliatory. We're at war now. What do you think the world looks like the next day?
Oh, well, the next day it's going to be a frantic round of contacts between Moscow, Beijing, and Washington. And, at that point, the U.S. might be threatening, or the Israelis would be threatening to use nuclear weapons. And the Chinese and Russians are going to say, hey, no way. And in fact, I think you're going to see countries like Pakistan, who are nuclear powers, they'll step up as well to come to the aid of Iran. So no, this would put us into some very, very dangerous waters. And up to this point, one of the reasons the United States has been able to be so bellicose in all of these over the years, we've never faced a real threat here in the United States. I think Russia and China then would be prepared to put the United States on notice that if it pursued any further aggression against Iran that would involve nuclear weapons, that the U.S. would be targeted. That we'd be pushing into a realm that they're risking global nuclear war. I think it would be that serious.
Yeah, that's what worries me, because the one of the reasons why the so-called 12-day war was only 12 days last year is because Israel recognized they can't keep going on like this, because the Iranian missiles, the ballistic missiles, were successfully penetrating their integrated air defense systems,
right.
And they couldn't stop it, so they needed it to stop. Now, by many accounts, Iran has deepened their capacity and accelerated its technological capacity, and that they would hit more targets inside of Israel. My worry is that if that wasn't just 12 days, but it started being something that was going on a long time, that there would be the temptation in Israel to resort to nuclear weapons, and then the world will never be the same after that day.
Yeah. And again, people think that the nuclear weapon's a magic bullet. it doesn't destroy all of Iran. You know, it could destroy one portion, a relatively small portion of Iran. Well, Iran's got other weapons to fight back with, and we can't rule out the possibility that they have in fact developed now a nuclear warhead just specifically for this contingency. And so this, the West exists. Our entire national defense strategy is built around creating mythical enemies. We create the Russians as an enemy, the Chinese as an enemy, the Iranians as an enemy, when none of those countries have shown any inclination to attack the United States or to go out and attack U.S. interests that are not threatening their own interests. But, you know, yet again, it's the United States that's got 700 plus military bases around the world. Iran, China, and Russia combined, I don't think they've got 10 bases around the world. And yet the one were being claimed to be the aggressors, the imperialists, or the Russians, the Chinese, and the Iranians. I mean, it would, if it wasn't so damn serious and so damn dangerous, it'd be funny.
It would. And I'm actually looking for one thing, if I can find here real quick. Just give me a second here. I'm looking for something. But tell me a little bit about what you think is going on in Ukraine right now, because when the lights are going off and everything is getting cold, they're talking about moving people out of the capital city. And yet Zelensky continues to talking this bellicose stuff like he's still on the upper hand side of that. Do you see any possibility that Ukraine may ever succumb to rationality, or will they continue on going down the irrational path?
Well, Klitschko has already called for an evacuation and asked the Ukrainians to leave. Anybody that's ever lived in a condominium or apartment that's in a 10-story building or higher, and you live on one of the upper floors, even if you're young and in shape, walking up 10, 12, 19 floors, carrying groceries, carrying water, because all of a sudden you no longer have running water. And how do you flush a toilet if you don't have running water, particularly when you're up on the 20th floor? You need electrical power to pump the water up there. So all of a sudden you get into a nightmare situation. I do remember actually when I was in Kiev back in 1994. At the time I was providing security services for a female CIA contractor, trying to protect her against a guy we called Vyacheslav the Lech. We were actually stayed. I stayed in a separate apartment building and had to actually walk up about 8 flights. And what was interesting is the urine smell in that stairwell, because people would be coming home drunk and they couldn't make the bathroom, so they just take a piss in the stairwell. So, I mean, you get into some really sort of unsavory practices, loss of electricity, loss of water. Really, I mean, it's going to create some health hazards for the people. So that's what folks don't understand. Now, I think what Klitschko is suggesting is people get, if they got a dacha outside of, you know, a farmhouse somewhere outside the city, at least got a wood stove, you maybe have water from a well, so you can go there and survive. But surviving in an urban area, no. And I think there's actually another dimension of this for the Russians strategically. Yeah, if you make the cities unlivable, people evacuate, you're less likely to inflict civilian casualties when you attack.
If you have to go in there. Yeah. I was looking for a specific video I'd seen earlier today. I finally found it, and just want to end on this one. I'm going to show you, you mentioned that, you know, the United States seems to look for enemies everywhere. Well, that was graphically described today by this American general. This was yesterday. Actually, this is General Grinkowicz, NATO's top general here. And I'm just going to play the first few seconds of this video. This is what is being passed around now as what we should all be worried about.
Sense of urgency. And that sense of urgency is essential. When I look around the globe, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, and others are increasing their collaboration and their cooperation as their interests align against us. We see this clearly in Ukraine. While President Trump pushes for a peaceful resolution to a horrible war, China continues to fund Putin's war machine. Iran continues to supply technology and weapons. And North Korean combat troops remain in Russia on Ukraine's border.
So bottom line here is that nobody in the West does anything wrong. There's no reason why any of these people do all this stuff. It's all nefarious. And my God, we have to get ready to fight them all. Not looking at that whole list of foreign countries we have attacked. And check me if I'm wrong, Larry, but if you look at all the foreign countries in the last 12 months, well, apples to apples, how many countries has China attacked and how many countries outside of Ukraine has Russia attacked in that same 12 months?
Zero.
Is that right? Is it zero? And it's whatever it was, I think about a dozen on our part, and we could be going to more.
Yeah.
I mean, what do people what do people in the West think when they see that long list of places that we attack and all these other places that we're threatening, and there's quite a few of those, and then they actually are surprised when there's a reaction. That goes back to what Farage said, that I think in that first videotape I showed you. If you go in and you poke the bear or the dragon, don't be surprised when they react like a dragon and a bear.
Yeah. Well, it is the propaganda that's being fed to people to create a narrative. And we've seen that over the past 2 weeks with respect to Iran. We're being told that, Iran for no reason is persecuting all these freedom-loving folks, and they're peaceful, and they're carrying granola bars, and marching in sandals, and the thugs are coming out and beating the hell out of them. Okay, so that's all designed to convince the American public, this Islamic Republic is bad. We got to get rid of it. We've seen the same propaganda effort with respect to Russia, with respect to China, and it is. I would challenge anybody in the United States to see if you can go out and ask, if you did a survey and asked people about the threat that is posed by Russia or China, you'd find most people say, they're a threat, because that's all they hear. And
right.
It's not like, I remember when I used to appear on CNN's Crossfire regularly back in 1997, 98, 99, even 2000, you would actually have two sides. You'd allow people with opposing views, like I debated Alan Dershowitz over Pollard back in 1998, I believe it was. So you could at least get two different views where people would hear that there wasn't just one side. What's being presented today, and it's not just Fox, it's on CNN, it's on MSNBC, it's on all the major networks, is that, with respect to Ukraine, it's Russian aggression. The West hasn't done anything to provoke that. China's intent on taking over Taiwan. Iran's out, is persecuting all the women. I watched on Fox earlier today, just to see what they were saying. They described how women in Iran are forced to cover up. And I'm thinking, you lying bastards. That's called Saudi Arabia, okay?
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's called Saudi Arabia. In fact, in Iran, and people like Max Blumenthal and his wife were there just in March, and Pepe Escobar too, Alistair Crook as well. They saw there were women without scarves, without required headdress. So again, it's a piece of propaganda that's put out there to create a narrative where the American public will be fully supportive of Donald Trump when he takes us to war again, despite his prior privileges to not take us to war. But that's where I agree. That's where we're headed. I just take some comfort that for right now, the U.S. doesn't have the military juice to make it happen. If they're going to do the proper planning,
right. They don't have the juice to make it happen properly. What I worry about, though, is that Trump made me think that I don't have limitations or constraints.
Yeah.
If I want to do it, and it'll work. So I don't take as much comfort from that. I take some, but
that's a fair point on your part.
All right. Well, listen, I really appreciate you. I know we went a little bit longer today. I really appreciate you giving us this extra time. And as always, we value what you have here. And tell people, remind them, go to Sonar 21. There's always some great stuff there. This recent one here, the CIA Mossad operation, sparked a this Spark and Color Revolution has failed in Iran. We'll see. Go check that out. That's a really interesting title there. But lots of other good stuff there too. Always, and we appreciate you coming on today.
Hey, Danny, always a pleasure. Thanks so much, my friend.
Thank you very much. See you next time, and we will see you on the next episode of the Daniel Davis Deep Dive. You know we don't have sponsors because we hate to hit you over the head with ads. I don't like them. So show a little love back. Subscribe, like, and send this to somebody you care about.